Alrighty, folks, it's Kundalini Awakening question and answer time. Two black snakes roiling around, a vision in a yoga class. What do I think? Here's my answer. First, I'm going to read out the email so you get the full context of the thing. A little bit of, actually, I'll leave those on for ease of reading. Hi, came across your site and had a quick question. Okay, first up, there's really no such thing as a quick question unless you're asking me what 2 plus 2 is, because there's always context, there's always background, which is why I choose to answer these emails on a video, because I know it will serve so many more people. And it usually takes me at least half an hour or so to really deeply feel into and respond to an email, sometimes an hour, right? And if you imagine how many emails I get a week, you can see why I take this path. All right, back to the email. Last night, I went to a yoga class that was holding a lot of HIIT work for long periods and was slow paced. Haven't been to a class or done yoga in 3.5 years. During the Shavasana, I got like this vision of two coiling black serpent bodies coiling around a rod for a while. I didn't experience much physical sensation, but I was a bit emotional, as anyone would be who's paying the slightest bit of attention to the US news cycle. So, anyway, not being unfamiliar with yoga and its spiritual teachings, I knew this might mean the thing. Not quite sure what that means. Also, not a stranger to drug-induced psychosis and too far too soon spiritual practices. So I'm treading lightly here. What do you think? One, good on you for treading lightly. Always, 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 folks. Always, no matter what you see or sense or the mind says, regardless of whether you have experienced psychosis or not, hands up who has. My suggestion is to always rest back in the awareness that you are and stay curious without assigning meaning, narrative, story to what you may be sensing or perceiving, right? This is kind of the wise action, you could say. Alrighty, so what do I think? One, I don't. Ha! Well, sometimes thoughts move through the mind, but thinking is overrated and it's a very bad habit. So, mm, when I'm answering an email like this, there is the content of the email, which is normally what someone is seeking an answer on, and there's what's happening underneath. So, and I like to attend to both aspects. So, one, I love the fact that this human is, being cautious around what they're perceiving. And what I notice is that many humans have the ability to sense and experience things beyond non-ordinary reality. And in the Western context, the only place for this is mental illness, is a diagnosis. Whereas in other societies, indigenous societies, ancient cultures, etc., there was a place for this. You know, there was a place for the psychic realms. There was a place for shamans. There was a place for all of these things. Not that I'm saying that all people who experience these things are shamans, because you're not you're not a shaman unless you've grown up in a specific culture and you have been identified as a shaman by the rest of the village and taken through a pathway. So all you modern day people out there calling yourself a shaman, you're not really. You have to be anointed by your community and by lineage. Side note. Okay, so it's really useful though, like if you do have a tendency to go into what might be called psychosis within the Western medical model, to really begin to do grounding practices and be able to master the mind and be able to navigate and discern what it is that you're actually perceiving and what kind of response is needed. So that's kind of the first thing on that. And as for the content, right, the specific vision that was seen of two black serpents, coiling around, etc. When vision arises, when vision arises, when this kind of information or data arises, don't attempt to interpret or analyze through thinking mind. That's the first critical thing, right? Just do not. Take note, absolutely. Be curious. You might wonder, but just let it go. And let me give you an example of this. I used to lead retreat back about 7 or 8 years ago in Mexico when I was living in New Zealand, and I had a young son. He was 7, 8, 9. So, and it was like a 17, 18-hour journey to fly from Auckland to LA, down to Puerto Vallarta, and then drive to Sayulita. So it was quite a long way for me to be away from my son, single parent, etc. And in 2018, when I was there, and I'm leading week-long retreats, and I would find, because I'm immersing in the body of work, that my ability to sense and perceive through time, etc., would ramp up quite a bit. And I had a few visions come through. One thing that happened that was really strong is I had this sudden like knowingness. It was like, holy shit, what happens when the planes stop flying? And I'm like, what does that mean? Why would the plane stop flying? At analyzing, thinking mind. But I knew enough. It was just this feeling. And I was like, and my first thought was, if the plane stopped flying and I'm in Mexico and my son is in New Zealand, how the fuck do I get back to New Zealand from Mexico? Right. So I just I didn't think about it. I didn't analyze it. I didn't try and figure out. Okay, it's just a piece of data, right? The next year, 2019, I go to the same place. I have the same sense, only now it's stronger. And I'm like, okay, so I'm paying attention. But again, I'm not analyzing. I'm not thinking about it. I'm not anxious. I'm not worried. It's simply a data point. But now there's two data points, and one is a little stronger. I go back home to New Zealand and I'm aware of this. So now what I'm doing is, when I'm looking to book flights, I'm really attuning to see, what does the body say, yes or no? Early 2020 or late 2019, I booked my next trip to Mexico. It's an annual thing. I go there annually and I teach. I booked for July 2020. And of course, in February and then in March, COVID hits. And what happens when COVID hits? All the planes stop flying. Now, I'm in New Zealand, so it's no biggie. I'm with my son, no biggie, right? What this taught me, and this is related to the theme, what this taught me is that, I've known this for a long time because it happened right before I went into psychosis, is that when, like, I have an ability to sense through time. It's like time itself doesn't really exist in the way that we think it does, and there's ripples and we can sense, and it's like, I don't know how to describe it, like when I feel into it, like this multidimensional thing. And so what it taught me was that, one, I can trust the impressions that arise, and I don't need to think about them. I don't need to analyze. I don't need to do anything. I can just take note and continue to attune, to deeply orientate to awareness, to be super embodied, and to just pay attention. And so what that gave me, like having that sense of what happens when the plane stopped flying, it made me pay more attention when I was booking flights. And when I was booking flights, because I did travel a little bit, I also went to Australia in that time period, I didn't get a clear don't go, right? The way was clear. So coming back around to, this vision of black serpents curling around, maybe this person is seeing something deeper into the subtle realms in terms of what is unfolding in America right now. Like we're talking, right, it's January 29th, 2026. And, I've been feeling into it as well, because there's what appears to be happening on the surface, but there's deeper energetic flows. There's other things that are unfolding. And I would collect it as a data point, and I would simply continue to orientate to the awareness that you are, stay really embodied, master the mind, right? None of this changes, particularly like if you have experienced psychosis at all, your number one priority needs to be grounding, embodiment, resolving of trauma in the system, in the body-mind complex, mastery of mind. And those things will stabilize you and ensure that you don't go into psychosis again, right? I experienced 2 episodes of psychosis in 2004, in August and September, a month apart, related to both, how do I describe it? Shakti awakening, like things opening up on the energetic planes, beginning to sense and see through time, etc. And also a very dysregulated nervous system, a very highly dysregulated nervous system, because I was in a romantic relationship that was triggering all of my childhood trauma, some of which I had no idea even existed, right? And so the dysregulated nervous system was what precipitated the psychosis, not necessarily because of Shakti awakening and beginning to have all these abilities come online, right? So regulation of nervous system is also absolutely critical. All right, let me just tune back into this email, see if there's anything else to add there. Yeah, I think that sums it up. That sums it up. Alrighty. Just taking a moment to tune into all of the humans that go into what the Western medical model calls psychosis. And there's so many nuances there. There's so many nuances there. There's this convergence that happens of mental illness, which is a thing, aspect of it, right? Or unresolved trauma, just patterns in the body mind complex that are no longer serving, and also the Shakti awakening and the cranking up of gifts coming online and the ability to sense in a way that doesn't even exist in the Western medical model, right? So just feeling for everyone who goes through that because it can be so destabilizing and so terrifying. And when you don't get the right support and the right help, you can end up shunted into the Western medical model, which is not necessarily beneficial for healing at all. Yeah. Alrighty. Mm. You're sending love, sending love, you're sending love. Yeah.